Hey, what's up, everybody? We are live. It's Tuesday night, and you're watching the Deadstream. For some reason, my screen has hit. There we go. Now it's crossed over into the regular territory. So, unfortunately, tonight, um, Lex has come down with something. We're hoping it's not Corona, but a lot of what she is describing as her ailments are possibly Corona. So, hopefully, we don't have to deal with that. Like we're hoping the best for her. We're hoping it's just something that she came down with, and she'll be able to recover quickly. With that said, Manda, I'm going to turn things over to you, and I will jump in to assist with comments and things like that. I'm going to go do some sharing and such.
All right. Hey, everybody. Good evening. Thank you, Jay. And yes, Lex, we hope you are feeling better and hope you get better quick. I miss you. It's going to be hopefully not so lonely of a show. You guys are going to have to help keep me company tonight while we're talking. And Lex is resting up, so she'll be ready hopefully for next week's show. We have some really good ideas for you coming up, so looking forward to it. How is everybody doing tonight, this beautiful Tuesday evening? I see Matthew is here. Anthony, Joe, good evening, everybody. How are you guys doing? Let me know in the comments. Remember, don't forget to like and share as well. Get everybody in tonight on our show since I'm without my co-host here. So I'm so sad. Tonight, I think we're going to have a super good discussion that everybody is going to be able to really dig in and give me some good input back on. We're going to go back super in time to, I think, just about everybody's favorite original goth, Edgar Allan Poe. Oh, Corey, we hope no Rona. Yes, hashtag no Rona for Lex. I agree. No Rona, just feels better. Are you guys excited to talk about Edgar Allan Poe tonight? I'm excited to talk about Edgar Allan Poe. I got to bust out some of my old favorites. I've been a huge fan myself for quite some time. Joe, hanging in there. Yes, me too, man. It's been a long week. I don't know why, but today was there was a funk in the air. I was glad to be able to come on here tonight with you guys, and it was definitely helping me feel a little better myself. Josh, hi. Yes, no Rona. I like it. Let's get this hashtag going and spreading here. No Rona at all for Lex. We want her back and feeling better. So yeah, what is everybody else doing tonight? How's everybody else feeling? I hope I wasn't, Lex and I were the only ones feeling a little down and out. Seems like everybody else has been doing not too bad. Some of my other friends seem to be, also feeling a little funk. And hopefully tonight will get you out of that funk. Or at least we can all be in it together. No Rona for Lex. Let's get it going here. I agree. No Rona. Lex, we love you. And I love you. I miss you. Wish you were here talking with me about Edgar Allan Poe. I know you were super excited to talk about that too. It was really exciting to even just spitball some ideas back and forth. I got to bust out my ridiculously large 1,020-page complete works of Edgar Allan Poe. I was super excited. Learned a couple new things that I didn't actually know, and I thought I knew quite a bit. I don't know where everybody else is from, but I'm going to let you in on a little secret. My hometown is Baltimore. And as most know, Mr. Poe, Mr. Edgar Allan Poe's end was here in Baltimore. His grave is here. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. Probably just going to talk about, when he started, since nobody else is really talking to me in the comments. What's going on, everybody? You all were there, and nobody's going to say anything about Edgar Allan Poe. I know we know a couple things about him, don't we? Does nobody have a favorite poem or prose that he did? He was the origin of the short story here. A couple of my favorites are the absolute favorites of everyone else, or the well-known ones at least. The Raven, Annabelle Lee. I love both of those poems, and a couple of his lesser-known ones as well. And then some of his, beautifully grotesque stories that he wrote. The Mask of the Red Death. And, one of the ones that is kind of neat, but he also wrote, oh my gosh, why am I drawing a blank here? He also wrote one that was actually kind of after my own name, which is kind of wonderful. It was a good thing there. And that was A Descent into the Maelstrom. So, me and Mr. Poe, how wonderful is that? Yes, Lex. Oh, there you are, darling. Hi, babe. Yes, A Telltale Heart. It was one of my favorite short stories, too. Oh, hey, Lance, how are you? Oh, you're from Baltimore, too. That's super awesome. Yeah, he is letting everybody know that it is kind of a bad part of town. But I don't know, maybe most of Baltimore is a bad part of town. We'll have to see how it is. Definitely visit during the day. There was somebody that used to go through, we'll talk about that a little later, very late in the evening, and would visit Mr. Poe's grave. He was born, we're coming on 200 plus years here, January 19th, 1809. And he was born in Boston. Anybody from Boston? He actually got his first work. He posted that as well. He's from Beaner, from a bean town. I don't know if he liked it very much, though. He didn't have very good things from what I was reading to say about Boston. Maybe that they lacked a little soul. Hey, Bill, good evening. There, you see you there tonight, too. And I think one of the reasons why everybody loves Edgar Allan Poe is because he was just cloaked in tragedy from the beginnings all the way through to the end. And that transferred just in kind of like I said, in a beautiful way, beautifully grotesque, the way he would describe everything and, be able to really share the depths of his heart and soul and imagination, and even in the dark imagination. He was born to parents that were actors. His father was also born in Baltimore, and his mother was from England. And they were not together very long. They were touring actors. They moved to New York. And in 1810, his father had left the family, and his mother had died very young of tuberculosis. And that seemed to be kind of an ongoing theme from what I read and saw and was looking through in his life. Kind of sad. But life is, you can't have life without death, I suppose, and it goes one hand, and it greatly influenced his works. Hi, Mark. How are you tonight? It's just me, though. Lex isn't feeling well. Hashtag no Rona for Lex. Keep it going. We love you, Lex. So I did learn a couple other things about his early life. He did have siblings, and after the death of his mother, they were all separated. His older brother, who also wrote poems as well, went to his grandparents in Baltimore, and he was actually taken in by a couple that lived in Richmond, Virginia, and they were the Allens, John and Frances Allen, and they never formally adopted him, but they gave him the name Edgar Allan Poe. Formerly, he was only Edgar Poe, and then without them, we wouldn't have had the man that we have now. He was with them for a very long time. Sailed with them to the UK in 1815 and went to school there. Came back here and went to the University of Virginia in 1826. And in 1827, he wrote his first book, published his first book. Can't even believe it. 18 years old, publishing his own book. Bill Philly, well, there you are. Edgar Allan Poe also lived in Philadelphia. He lived all up and down the East Coast. He lived in the Bronx in New York, in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in Richmond. I did read that he was stationed even in North Carolina for a bit of time when he was in the Army for a couple of years. Though I think there's only a few places. I think there is maybe a monument to him in Boston, where he was born, and then obviously we have his grave here in Baltimore, which is a pretty famous place to go, and we love him here in Baltimore. And then I think there's also a monument in Richmond as well. So I'm not sure. Does anybody know that for so many? Oh, Mark, yes, so many great works. I agree. Oh, he's talking about. Mark is talking about in the comments one of his short stories, which one of his better ones. And you are, I think, pretty close on the spelling there. Give me just a moment. I will reference my official works here, and I will give you the exact pronunciation of this short story. So sorry, guys. He really has so many works. It's amazing. My book was 1,000 pages. I didn't get through all 1,000 pages in this week because I did have a couple other things to do, surprisingly. His short stories were pretty amazing. I know a couple people have already talked about a couple of them. And then, of course, with all of them, I cannot find the cast of Amontillado. Oh, no, I definitely did not pronounce that right. The Golden Bug. Oh, you guys are naming some good ones here. A little bit lesser knowns. I like that. I liked a lot of those too. My all-time favorite poem is A Dream Within a Dream, and it's a little more romantic and a less horror-ish than some of the other ones, like The Raven. I know everyone knows the beginning of that one. So we are just, we're really here. If anybody is just joining us, we're starting to talk about Edgar Allan Poe. And I really only just began. I started talking a little bit about his early life, and that he was 1827 when he published his first book. And only 50 copies of that book was actually released at that time. But he, at that point, really knew that he wanted to be an author and a writer, and he was the first person to actually even attempt to be an author as a profession. Before that, people did not. It was only a side job, temporary, so that was kind of exciting for him to even pioneer the way for an entire profession. Thank you, Edgar Allan Poe, for giving us all the other full-time writers out there. Hi, everybody. Leroy, Luxaria, hello. How are you? It sounds wonderful. We're talking about Edgar Allan Poe. Does anybody else have a favorite that they want to talk about at the moment? We started just talking about a couple of the little things here: The Raven, The Telltale Hearts, The Mask of the Red Death. Bill mentioned The Golden Bug. I had spoken that I have 1,020-page tome of gorgeous works by him. So not only was Edgar Allan Poe, I'm just going to keep on going since I don't have Miss Lex here with me to bounce anything off of. And Mark down here, he's saying that he's been a fan since he was a kid, and I think that's when a lot of us were introduced. I know I was also introduced to Edgar Allan Poe fairly young as well, as a child, and by the time I was an early teenager, that's when I got my first complete works, which is wonderful. And, rereading them, I still think they translate so well, even to now. the way that he uses the English language it's exquisite. And reading some of the poems and the metering that is there, you almost can sing them, and it's delicious. You guys, if you're not reading Edgar Allan Poe, you should be right now, and I hope if you're not, you're going to be after this. Bill, you said he wanted to be a playwright. I'm sure, honestly, I'm sure he did. I was reading he was doing magazines, doing publishers for newspapers. He was writing all of his short stories and poetry and just really submitting anywhere and everywhere that he could. And I think that's really, I mean, he didn't make an amazing living. Let's be very honest. I mean, it really seemed like Along with Death broke, and it was another theme that surrounded him. He didn't live, a high life, though he moved around often. But he knew what he wanted. He left a couple places because he wasn't getting the creative control that he wanted to have. So, you kind of have to admire that, being so many years ago, I mean, so many hundreds of years ago at this point, 200 years ago, and being able to still stick by it and keep going. And he came from, a very broken, sad, family, not a lot of family support. And, I don't believe his adoptive parents were incredibly supportive as well. I did read that he fought a lot with his adopted father and made up a couple of times. But, I think he was ahead of his time. And at the time that he was in, maybe didn't quite fit in. So not only was he the first person to ever make a living from being a writer, he was also the first author. He was the father of the detective story. I didn't even realize Sherlock Holmes is, based off of his characters, which is fantastic. And I mean, he really was one of the first authors in the horror genre as well, with his psychological twists and turns and the way that he wrote everything. Yeah, Bill, Price, Vincent Price. I know. What was I reading too? Guillermo del Toro and Price were doing some of his short stories. I didn't get to see that anywhere, but I was reading about it, so now I'm going to be super interested in looking into that. What I really liked is that a lot of his stories do seem to really be able to translate well across the different art platforms there. I would love to be able to see some more visual short stories. We've had a couple in the past that are always so good. They're always individually so great. He really is really shaped literary theory as we know it. I know that gets a little deep here, and this is Dead Dollies, but he was a genius. Even though he wasn't really accredited and recognized during that time, we still really keep going back to him and back to his stories. Maybe because we all see a little bit of ourselves in him, some of the sadness, some of the happiness, some of the romanticism that he had with some of his words. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about the way he would write some of his gory details? I loved. Oh, Lex just commented, I love you. I wish we were doing this right now. But she was watching a documentary. I will let you know. We didn't even get to discuss anything. She hasn't been feeling well. And she said that Black Sabbath got inspiration from Poe. That's very interesting. I didn't even realize that he was influencing even music. I mean, I was thinking it was just some, current authors and maybe some current movie makers and horror-esque, even special effects people. That's amazing. Lance, I agree. He was just saying that a TV show with Kevin Bacon years ago was based on his works too, and 100 years, 200 years later, his works are still being adapted. And it is, I mean, I was saying, I don't know if you heard a few minutes ago, Lance, but rereading these poems and short stories, they really do hold up to anything today. They still are visually stunning. They're still engaging of the mind. They're still right there. Even though I know what's going to happen, I'm still wanting to see and wanting to see more. Aw, Lex, I know you wished you could be here too. I wished you could be here. Hashtag no Rona for Lex. We'll see you next week, babe. You just get better. I wish I could send you some chicken noodle soup. You need some soup, Ma. I love you. So, yes, 200 years later, his works are still being adapted, still being talked about. Unbelievable to be able to have that kind of legacy and longevity. I don't think he thought it was going to be like that, even though he devoted not many years, but all of his adult years to writing and to publishing and to sharing. So, to be able to just have that drive and continuation to keep going is definitely admirable. He kept writing all the way until his death. His wife died 2 years, I believe, before he died. He died like so many others, currently and before him, died alone in the streets of Baltimore. No, he did die here in Baltimore, but his death is still a mystery. They don't exactly know what happened. He kind of got lost here for 5 days on his way, and got lost in Baltimore and ended up dead. And that is why it is known as Bodymore Murderland. I'm so sorry, everyone. It is a beautiful place, though. Just visit during the day, I suppose. Who knows, though, Poe might have been in during the day, too. He was into all kinds of stuff, gambling, drinking. I'm sure he was quite a character to sit and have a drink with. Everybody, I think, always imagines him as kind of broody and dark, and, he's the ultimate goth boy. I don't know. I did read that he had a great sense of humor, so that would be kind of fun to hear him be, funny, I guess. Yes, and Corey, you're right. They never did find out how he died. He just, he came into Baltimore. He never went out. They took him to Church Home Hospital, which, has been a long-time hospital and is something else now. But he died here, sadly, by himself. And, we really don't even know. We don't know if it was alcohol poisoning. We don't know if it was tuberculosis. We don't know if it was because of him drinking. He was a heavy drinker for many years. But whatever the sad reason, I mean, he could have even been killed. He was in a shady establishment that was also a polling place. So there's all kinds of mystery that surrounds, his death, his life, everything. I guess it's kind of one of the reasons why he still lives on, too, because there's so much mystique surrounding him. Oh, well, Lance is giving me a very interesting fact. Thank you, Lance. I love facts you don't know, but I do. And you said officially it was an enlarged liver, or leading to liver failure. But, I mean, that was in 1849. So, well, this is kind of neat. There's a house in Philadelphia that you can tour that was once his. That is kind of cool. I will have to, that would be an interesting road trip. All the Poe places up and down the coast and visit all the little places. Yes, Lex, let's go on a field trip. We should do it. This would be so much fun. We could video it. You guys want to watch our field trip? That would be great. Bill, he could have met a woman in that whole place, in that bar. Who knows? There's some shady individuals. Let me just tell you. You never can tell who you're going to run into when you're going into a bar in Baltimore. And even if you're going to come out. I mean, look at Edgar Allan Poe, 200 years later. Still the same problems we're having now. But after his death, he did really take off. I read that it was actually a rival of his that wrote his obituary. And this is so sassy and definitely a little catty, but he wrote some terrible things about how he was, this terrible drinker, and he was a womanizer, and he was a gambler, and he really wrote a very scathing obituary for Edgar Allan Poe, and that's kind of really what everyone shaped their ideas around. There wasn't a lot of people that really, still knew him, which I thought was kind of interesting. I don't know if anybody knew that. Bill, I knew a woman in white as a ghost. I was just teasing. It could have been anything. There's all kinds of crazies. And, Corey, yeah, so I wanted to let you know, I mean, he made it out into the sports world. This is how translatable Edgar Allan Poe is. Baltimore's team is the Raven. Their mascot is a raven. There's two of them, or Poe is what they call the Raven, which is so funny. So pretty amazing. You're, an author. You died broke and drunk by yourself in not your hometown with no one around. But, hey, at least the city named their football team after you. We still love you, Edgar Allan Poe. There was actually it's kind of neat. There was a mysterious person. He was named the Poe Toaster. And I don't know if anybody else knows of this legend and lore. And it was an actual thing, and the local news would report on it. I remember seeing it as a kid. But for 7 decades, a mysterious figure on Edgar Allan Poe's birthday in January. And here in Baltimore in January, it's usually pretty cold. Sometimes we even have snow. I know there was a couple years there was snow. And he would visit late at night the gravestone. And he would open up a bottle of cognac. And he would have a glass. And then he would leave the half-finished bottle of cognac and 3 roses. And that happened every single year. Like I said, for 7 decades. I did find out some, behind the scenes of the little lore and the little legend of the Poe Toaster. It seemed that he passed the original in 1998, or the late 90s. And his son took over for a while, but there hasn't been anyone toasting Poe's grave since 2009. So it's kind of sad. I think we still need to have somebody go out there and toast his grave. What do you guys think? Are you still there with me tonight? I'm by myself. I hope you're all still there with me. Lex is in the comments. You can stop by, say hi. Make sure you like and you share. Get everybody in talking about Edgar Allan Poe. Talking about the Poe Toaster who would have cognac at Poe's grave every year in January in Baltimore. And as someone mentioned before, in a not so nice part of town. And it's not always so nice there. So yes, our mysterious favorite goth figure who was the father of the macabre and just beautiful, grotesque death, and the inventor, in science fiction. Unbelievable. I mean, he dabbled in so many genres for so long. Bill, you in for what? What are you in for? Are you going to be in to be the new Poe toaster? That we need one. Maybe that's why the world is in such disarray. Oh, Mark, you're mentioning somebody else here that he says is influenced by Poe. And I haven't. He said The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. That she was inspired by Poe. So many people were inspired. I was starting to look down a little list of people that actually came out and were like, I'm inspired by Poe's work. And it was very, very long. And as someone mentioned before, it wasn't even just authors. It was also directors and screenplay writers and things like that. So many people had been touched by the way that he was able to describe and entrance you and bring you in, to his imagination to really see what he was seeing. Yes, a double feature in sci-fi. That's the wrong topic. I'm sorry. We could, though. He did have a few sci-fi stories, too. But no, we're here talking about his horror. His horror and gore. I loved it. Even in, I thought crossed over to the Murders in the Rue Morgue, which was really the detective story that was, inspired for Sherlock Holmes. But even that was very gory and just detailed and well thought out for somebody who was just so normal. It's kind of neat to see people that were exploring, the kind of the dark side of the imaginations even so long ago. You guys are just joking around in the comment section now. You're supposed to be helping me here at my show. It's supposed to be my virtual co-host since I'm all here by myself. Where's my help when I need it? Come on, guys. We're talking Edgar Allan Poe. So who's all there still with me tonight? You guys still out there? You still hanging in there? Do I need to start reading you some Edgar Allan Poe? Because I will. Don't make me. There's so many. I really could open up any page and start reading to you, and you would be horrified by all the gore and all the details. But I don't know if I would be able to get through an entire page without mispronouncing something. It's definitely a tongue twister. Even when I'm reading it in my head, sometimes I had to go back and reread a couple of them. But I guess I've been out of practice. It was much easier in the past. You guys are still just joking around there in the comment section. Ooh, Lance has a good question. He wants to know who's everybody else's favorite authors. We were actually talking about that, maybe doing another little show in the future about some other authors. Don't didn't hear it from me. One of my favorite horror authors, aside from Edgar Allan Poe, because he really had been one of my first looks into horror as well. I loved Stephen King, and I did see an excellent article shared with the Dead Dollies regarding something Stephen King might have been looking about. Hey, Katie, how are you, darling? I just saw that you jumped on. Hope you are well. Miss seeing your face. Mark, you're baking a cake? That sounds good. I love cake. I think Edgar Allan Poe probably would love cake if he wasn't already diabetic from drinking too much. He probably would be loving cake, too. What do you guys think? What is everybody else's favorite horror author? Lance wants to know. I said mine already. We'll have to see how you guys are doing out there. So aside from Poe here and all of his fiction and poetry, which apparently there was even more than what I have in my book here. But I could not keep searching. There was so much information, I couldn't believe it. My eyes had gone cross. Thought I was going to have to start taking notes. There's so many facts that I didn't realize and know before. I really think that some of his hook and some of the appeal really with the macabre and the dark and the horror and the gore was really probably based on losing his mother and then his wife. Both of them were very young, and that probably heavily influenced his work. So, I do think that the loss of love and the loss like that of the women in his life being young, his adoptive mother as well also died young, probably heavily influenced, his works. Lex did mention down here, I don't know if you guys had seen, that she also thinks Stephen King might be her favorite author too. I think it's because he's written a lot of things too. I mean, once he's going to have a long legacy as well. Oh yeah, Mark, you're mentioning all kinds of good names in there. Anne Rice, love Anne Rice. Dean Koontz, Clive Barker, yes. Sylvia Plath, ooh, look at you. She was a little depressing. So, rum cake. Oh, yes. Gotta have the rum, right? So, Lex mentioned down here in the comments a little bit of the controversy and with Poe that I hadn't mentioned before. But I was a little shocked too. I didn't realize that when he did marry his wife, she was very young. She wasn't even 14 when they were married. And, they actually didn't tell anybody, but apparently they had a very happy marriage. And, her mother gave her blessings, and she moved with them to their different places, which is kind of interesting. So, he was devastated when she passed. Also very young. So terrible. I'm so sorry I'm talking about that. But, yeah, so it is kind of interesting. I wonder how that dynamic worked. Was it, that was 200 years ago, was it still that controversial? I mean, I guess it really was pretty controversial. Maybe that led more to his mystique, that he kept things hidden and private. I'm not sure. What do you guys think? Bill, he had a lot of bad dreams. He probably was. I mean, if you've read his work, you would know. It's terrible. He definitely has some bad dreams. I can't believe he lived so many places on the East Coast, all the way up and down. I've been to a few of the places. I'm so sorry, everyone. I was just trying to get caught up on some of the extra comments down here, and so I can stay up to date with you guys. So with Poe living up and down the East Coast, I also wonder too if some of the different areas changed how he wrote as well, or if it was really just more influence from the people and particular events happening in his life. What do you guys think? Are you guys inspired at all by where you live? Is it beautiful sometimes there? Is it horrible sometimes there and horrifying sometimes there? Because that seems to be a good theme in his work too. So we only had a couple people we were talking about, maybe whoever, what all our favorite authors are as well here in the comments. Ooh, I know what I forgot to mention, that he also wrote under a pseudonym as well. And I love when that happens. Why does that happen? You know, is that because there is just something that they need to get across that maybe they wouldn't have been able to do under their real name or their proper name? Lex is also commenting again down here in the comments some really interesting stuff, which is why I love her and I wish she was here. That he might not have actually been an alcoholic because he had so many sober spells and so many lengths of time like that. Oh, hey, Manny, how are you? Good evening. Nice to see you all tonight. We're talking Edgar Allan Poe. And I think a lot of the times we think of Edgar Allan Poe, we think of, you know, the drunk goth guy. And maybe Lex is telling us down here in the comments that he might not have been the alcoholic. Oh, Bill, yeah, I like what Bill is saying too, that he took folk stories and he turned them into his own, which is kind of cool too. Maybe he went back and seen some of the works that his parents were acting on as well. With Lex talking about some of the sober spells that he had, specifically like when he went into the military. I did read too, even later in his life, he also did have some sober times as well, where it wasn't all just drunk, gambling, raven-perched Edgar Allan Poe there. Oh, and Lance coming out here with also super good information about pseudonyms and for legal purposes. I like that. Okay. It's very interesting. I like that you guys are so knowledgeable and even so well versed here in poetry and prose. I think what we'll do, we'll have to have like a little poll, and we'll have to see which one your favorite Edgar Allan Poe is. Is it The Raven? Is it The Telltale Heart? Is it The Pit and the Pendulum? Which, wow, that one, I reread all of those, but The Pit and the Pendulum was, it was heavy. Bill, do you really think that Bill said men drank 10 times more 200 years ago when Edgar Allan Poe? I guess maybe they did. A lot of wine or mead and beer, right? Oh my gosh. Could you imagine coming home and working really hard, just sweating, been out and tending to all your acreages, and then you come in and you have to drink mead or beer, not water, something cool and refreshing. I juiced myself today. I needed to pick me up. So I had some pineapple, some cucumber, some spinach, some apple, and I juiced it all up. But if I lived 200 years ago, I might have only been able to have wine or beer. I guess that is another way to pick myself up, though, especially after a long day. What do you guys think? What is your favorite pick-me-up after a long day? Talking about Edgar Allan Poe for this entire time by myself. You guys must be sick of my voice. I'm sick of my own voice. Oh my God, Lex, all the hangovers. Could you imagine? Like every day would be a hangover. And not only do you have a hangover, then you've got to just be like going out, working hard every day. Oh my gosh.
Well, when you think about it.
Oh, hi, Jay.
I'm going to comment real quick on like how you were just saying about like coming in and drinking an ale or drinking a glass of wine or something like that. It's it's not like it is today where like you come in and you have a Coke or you have a Pepsi. Like those kinds of drinks didn't exist back then, so you came in and you had an ale or you had a wine. You know.
I do know that it would make for some very long nights if I had to come in and only drink ale. Oh, and Joe, he's saying yes, ice cold Miller Lite. And Bill, I know they were stronger back then too. Could you imagine? Oh my gosh. You know, and maybe that is why Joe is commenting that he get lost in his own world. Maybe that is why some of Poe's works are so amazing too. He's sitting there drinking his mead after his long day, drinking his ale, getting all sloshed, and he's like, you know what? I bet you this raven's gonna be coming up. Let me read this story. Nevermore. Oh, and Lex, you're too kind. I love you, and I love your voice. Hashtag no Rona for Lex. We love you. I'm so glad, though, you were at least feeling well enough to maintain and hang in through the comments. I miss you. I know it hasn't been that long since I've seen you, but I miss you already. Lance is making all kinds of good comments down here talking about, writer-related things. And I guess even talking about why people would use pseudonyms and stuff like that. But, about some people here being sued for rights for other movies. You'll have to go read it in the comments. I don't know if I can be talking about all those things on the Deadstream. But he did say that it's throwing the writers' union into a frenzy. I can only imagine, when you're putting so much work and time and really putting your soul into building something. It's like a baby, like when you're doing music or when you're doing the Deadstream, and you're putting a bit of you into it. You would want to be able to have that for your own, and not being able to have the rights to it. That'd be terrible. Now I know why so many musicians are sad too, with how they get screwed a lot too in the industry.
We just have to hope that what happened with Friday the 13th doesn't wind up happening with Hellraiser, where you have Clyde Barker saying, "Well, I wrote the story. Did someone else write a script, invent a character?" Like that's how the whole Friday the 13th thing became a huge lawsuit.
Right. And that makes it's a huge big deal. And that makes such an impact too, not only just on the specific genre, but all across the board, because then that can be taken any way. So I know it's already getting late here in the hour, and I do thank you guys so much for being here with me and liking and sharing and talking Edgar Allan Poe. And talking maybe a little our favorite ways to relax, aside from an ale or a mead. I do like to write myself. And I think next time maybe, I didn't have to pull it out, but next time, I might have to go ahead and just start reading you poetry. Don't make me read horror poetry, everyone. I will do it. You guys have been so great. I thank you so much for being here with me and being my co-host. Oh, Lance, he's mentioning about Hellraiser heading to TV. I know. I don't know if it's going to do better for Hellraiser itself or not. And maybe that will be happening more too. I certainly hope not.
Hey, something I forgot to point out earlier in the beginning of the show.
What?
A couple little factoids. They're not Poe factoids. But they are the June 16th factoids.
I love factoids.
And today is June 16th, so I just want to point out that June 16th, 1960, we were introduced to someone named Norman Bates.
It's wonderful. Happy 60th birthday, Norman Bates. The movie Psycho. That's really neat, Jay.
And then another, I guess June 16th was probably a Friday in various years, because that's why so many movies would have come out, But, yeah, you know what? I didn't realize that. 1960, 2020, 60 years today.
Psycho is 60 years old. That's kind of neat. I didn't even realize that either.
And for those that dig down a little bit, without Psycho, John Carpenter would not have been inspired to do Halloween. There's a couple little things where he did, little things that I'd have to pull out notes to read everything, but there's little tidbits in there.
Sure.
That were related to Psycho being one of his big inspirations. But coming forward a few years, in 1978, we saw the sequel on June 16th of one of the greatest beach horror movies ever made. June 16th, 1978. Dollies 2 came into theaters.
That's really neat.
And then not such a great sequel, but in 1989, Ghostbusters 2.
Aw, Ghostbusters, come on, that wasn't that bad. It could have been worse.
Yeah, it could have been the remake.
Could have been. We're not going to mention that as even being a Ghostbusters. What do you guys think? Ghostbusters 2? Yay, nay? Well, I've still watched it a few times myself. I can't help it. They're just so good together. I love Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd and Bill Murray.
I didn't say it was a terrible movie, but, it certainly wasn't the original.
Well, seldom. That is seldom the case. Most movies are never hold a candle up to the original. Bill wants to know, what was the one with a puppet? Which one with a puppet? What are you talking about? Hey, Nick, how are you? Yeah, and Mark agrees with me. The second Ghostbusters was good. With the second Ghostbusters, wasn't that with, hey, it's Vigo, right? Come on, that was a good one.
Yeah, Vigo the Terrible.
Dude, come on. And the River of Slime, that was totally solid. I know Ghostbusters is not Edgar Allan Poe related, but come on. I mean, the giant Statue of Liberty, all moving around. Oh, Eliana is watching. Hi, Eliana. We're talking Ghostbusters 2. Eliana likes Ghostbusters 2. I know it. Lex, what about you? Do you like Ghostbusters 2? She hates puppets and dolls, but Ghostbusters 2 might be alright. They had some really good special effects in there. I don't know what you guys are talking about. Ghostbusters 2 is totally solid.
Alright, well, something that we need to do, and I will take it over this week.
Oh, what?
I will make sure we get this done. Let's see. Where is my list? I do know this by heart, but I have some little notes here that I want to make sure I mention.
You should definitely share our sponsors, because I know, too, that there are some you have to share. Oh, and Roxy is also watching. Hi, Roxanne.
Alright, so let me get that out of the way. Let me get on that right now.
Okay, thank you.
So, we have our sponsors. Some of them have been with us since before there was a show. So, let's give a shout out to Catuli Books, who did Zombies vs. Robots 1 through 4 and many others. You can find them on Amazon.
Yes.
Next, we have Pop Culture Room discussing Jimmy Jones discussing the 7 pillars of pop culture. Every Sunday night, he does a Facebook Live show at 5 p.m. Western, 8 p.m. Eastern, and then from I hate trying to do the whole time change. So we're just gonna go with East Coast times because most of our viewers are on the East Coast. But at 10 p.m. Eastern, you can find him on the radio live out of Nevada on KNBC.
Ooh.
Next, I know a lot of you like coffee.
Oh, I love coffee.
Make sure you check out Deadly Grounds, coffee to die for. Hopefully, we'll be opening up this year. Bloodshed Farm Spear Fest is another of our sponsors where they have Nightmare Paintball, which is owned by Dead Dollies. So if we are open this year, hopefully we will be, make sure you come out and check us out. And mention Dead Dollies and you'll get something special.
Jay, I'm so glad that you took the pressure off me tonight by taking over those sponsors, because it's been an exhausting hour being here doing this myself. I really missed Lex tonight. You guys miss Lex tonight?
We just need Lex to make sure she gets better.
She is. She just needs some more rest. And lots of love. You hear that? That is your lots of love and rest.
I feel bad for our fans that had to sit here and listen to me tonight.
Well, it was only minimal. I mean, I have been going on for an hour about a man that's been dead for 200 years. But at least he is interesting. So you guys are so good hanging in there with me and Jay tonight. Missing our Lex de Morte. But she'll be back next week. Don't worry. We're hoping. Oh, wait a minute. Bill, I have to tell you guys before we leave, Bill said he was able to see Jaws at the drive-in. That sounds so cool. I would love to see that. But, everyone, it is getting late. I had a wonderful time. I am Manda Malmstrom. This has been the Deadstream. We've been here with Jay. And we will see you all next Tuesday, back with my co-host, Lex de Morte. And, she's normally the one that says this, but, the same dead time and same dead channel. So see y'all next week. Have a great night. Bye.